are going to unpack this together because the evidence here has taken a truly sharp turn. We have tracked multiple ransom demands all week. We found some resolution to at least one, but nothing solid on the rest. Law enforcement activity across this investigation has skyrocketed. The operation runs hot, then goes completely cold. That exact chaotic pattern repeated itself both yesterday and today. My analysis shows something major is unfolding here. We received your message, and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable, and we will pay. Now let us review Saturday night. I tracked a massive flurry of police activity 4 miles down from Nancy Guthrie's residence. That original crime scene where Nancy was abducted sits near Annie Guthrie's house. I counted 3 separate vehicles arriving. They were totally unmarked. Plain white vehicles parked, plus multiple sheriff deputies. They stormed the house. We have uncovered some extremely strong clues, and my gut says we will get concrete answers very soon. I am not talking about a search. I am talking about a solution. We have some definitive evidence that will maybe come out reasonably soon from the FBI or DOJ. As an investigator, I can see a massive amount has taken place recently. I think you are being way too nice in this situation. With all due respect to the sheriff, any seasoned detective knows the exact time she vanished is a critical piece of evidence. This is not some foggy battlefield confusion. 7 days. Nancy Guthrie has been a missing person for 7 days. Instead of the clear timeline, a solid week of forensic digging usually provides this missing persons case swerved into entirely uncharted territory. We watched nighttime raids at family homes, flash photography inside dark rooms, federal agents probing underground tanks behind the crime scene, plus ransom demands carrying Monday deadlines. And the President of the United States stating on Air Force One that he is focused on a permanent solution, not just a search. He hinted definitive answers are coming soon. All these moving parts collided over a single weekend, creating a chaotic scene that local reporters, seasoned investigators, and her desperate family have never seen since Nancy Guthrie was initially snatched from her Catalina Foothills estate. This intense level of nighttime activity is completely abnormal. Let us look at standard protocol. Typically, when working a massive active crime scene, operations quiet down at night. Security steps and perimeters are held, but the heavy investigative forensic work completely pauses until the sun rises. But my timeline shows that did not happen here. Not at Nancy's house. Not at Annie Guthrie's house 4 miles away. And certainly not where the FBI relentlessly pulled late-night surveillance footage from key businesses along that route. Agents hit a Chevron and a Circle K, demanding specific security footage of vehicles driving past. As an analyst reviewing the logs, I noticed 2 highly critical details from the scene. First and foremost, a deputy appeared to extract an object. Looking at the blurry footage, it is tough to say if it was a thin, wide metallic carrying case, or just a simple folding white table. In my professional opinion, it resembled a folding table, but I cannot rule out a sleek silver evidence case. It was not long at all before things suddenly escalated. Teams entering that pitch-black house deliberately kept the main lights off, even though it was pushing incredibly late into the dead of night. Only a few dim lights flickered near the rear of the property before abruptly cutting out. But then I noticed camera flashes. Bright bursts resembling heavy flash bulbs started firing, indicating forensic photographs were being snapped inside a totally dark, seemingly vacant house belonging to the Guthrie family. Let me map out Saturday night. 3 unmarked white SUVs approached Annie's residence. A squad of sheriff deputies breached the completely unlit house. My intel suggested the family was absolutely not staying there. Over the next 3 hours, our targets gathered evidence that raised major unanswered questions. Distant lights illuminated the back rooms, then immediately faded back to pure black. Then rapid camera flashes, or what looked exactly like forensic photography, illuminated those pitch-black rooms. Why take crime scene photos inside a house where detectives intentionally cut the power for 3 hours? My investigative instinct immediately screams luminol testing. That chemical reacts with human blood, producing a bright glow, strictly visible in utter darkness. That is exactly why we always kill the lights before spraying it. You and I should notice what was missing. Not a single officer walking in or out of that house wore Tyvek suits or standard forensic protective gear. Normally, spraying luminol requires full protective hazmat gear. I saw none of that. No bulky bags hauling in those white protective suits. Whatever happened inside that pitch-black house for 3 hours with camera flashes was highly unusual. Or they ran blood tests without any of the standard precautions my colleagues usually take. When one deputy finally stepped out, the cameras caught the Pima County Sheriff insignia right there. Not federal agents. He wore blue latex gloves clutching a plain brown paper bag. Now, evidence bags can look like almost anything. Some actually are brown paper sacks. I couldn't clearly tell if this one was sealed. But watching a gloved deputy haul a bag from a dark home, seeing those flashes, those cameras snapping for 3 hours at 10 p.m. paints a very clear investigative picture even without an official statement. The deputies just drove off, totally ignoring the media crews waiting outside. Zero comments. They refused to explain their actions. So the journalists on scene, including Brian Enton from News Nation and Michael Ruiz from Fox News, just had to record the visual evidence and let us analysts decode the actual hard facts. If you want my breakdown on these night searches, the underground probes, and the ransom clock, hit that subscribe button. Because this investigation keeps rewriting every single theory we thought we had solved. The specific evidence I noticed behind Nancy Guthrie's property was detectives locating what looked exactly like, honestly, a manhole lid or some kind of heavy tank cover, probably for a septic unit or a buried water reservoir. They pried it open. It measured roughly 2 feet across from my observation. Massive opening. Then they started pushing a massive metal rod deep down into that dark underground vault. That Sunday, behind Nancy Guthrie's place, agents lifted a heavy cap about 2 feet across, exposing what looked like a hidden subterranean tank right near the pool and garden. Then they shoved a long testing tool directly into whatever sludge rested below the surface. Let's analyze this together. Watching detectives physically probe underground tanks at a missing woman's house is incredibly grim. It tells me they are hunting for something, or someone stashed where a corpse might hide, and where brutal biological and chemical reactions inside a sealed void would massively speed up the decomposition timeline. My review of the area shows these rural neighborhood homes do not use a city sewer grid. Every single lot runs on an independent septic tank. A water hauling truck showed up days earlier right next to Nancy Guthrie's private property, sparking my theories about whether this vault was a well or septic drain. I immediately cross-referenced this with the Jennifer Dulos investigation from exactly 6 years ago. In that case, forensics dragged septic lines at a suspect's home hunting for a missing mother of 5 whose remains simply never turned up. I also recall a sick New Mexico case where a murderer buried victims in manure. Forensic experts proved tissue breaking down inside that environment would rot at terrifying speeds due to extreme heat and severe bacterial activity. Scraping the bottom of a sewage tank is an extreme forensic tactic used when hard leads point to a targeted spot, or when failed ground searches force detectives to check the horrifying places they genuinely prayed they could ignore. And this happened on day 8, exactly 7 days after the official search permanently closed. 7 days after the sheriff claimed we had zero reason to keep scouring the grounds around Nancy Guthrie's home. Yet suddenly, agents are back pulling heavy lids, driving steel tools deep enough to strike the very bottom of whatever nightmare sits buried below. Stick with me. The timeline shattered that Sunday morning. What the lead sheriff originally told my team was that right around 11 or slightly past 11 a.m. on Sunday, the family received an alert from a church friend who noticed Nancy never showed up. Focus. They arrived at her house and roughly an hour later dialed 911. At least that was the initial narrative. That detail created major consternation for us investigators. People rightly asked, why on earth did it take an entire hour? How do you possibly justify waiting, especially after spotting fresh blood right outside? Just like Brian Enton captured on camera, who actually waits an entire hour. But yesterday, during the sheriff's press conference, that official timeline completely flipped. He officially claimed they arrived and realized she was gone at 11:57 a.m. Suddenly, that entire missing hour simply vanished. The controversial gap with dispatch called at 12:03. The timeline changed, and that matters. Initially, the sheriff stated repeatedly across various interviews and official press conferences that a concerned friend, calling from the church, alerted the family near 11 a.m. about Nancy missing Sunday services. Relatives drove to her home. They searched the property and roughly 60 minutes later dialed 911. That window from 11 a.m. to noon became the highly debated gap that investigators scrutinized. What exactly occurred during that specific time frame? Why delay calling for emergency backup with visible blood at the front entrance? Then, the narrative shifted. In his latest official update, the sheriff declared the family arrived and found Nancy missing at 11:57 a.m. They dialed 911 at 12:03 p.m. 7 minutes, not 60. 7. That problematic hour just vanished from the official record. You and I both know, looking closely at the evidence, this isn't just the fog of war. Pinpointing exactly when a victim is discovered missing remains a foundational fact in any abduction investigation. That specific detail doesn't just slide by an entire hour due to a simple miscommunication. Even the church narrative has triggered major red flags. Reporting by the Daily Mail and Brian Enton proved that Nancy Guthrie hasn't physically attended Sunday service since the COVID pandemic. She joined via live stream, a standard outgoing broadcast from the congregation that anyone could access. But this simply wasn't a two-way Zoom meeting where organizers could verify exactly who logged on. The parish had absolutely zero way to confirm whether Nancy was actually watching that video feed. Therefore, that initial claim about a fellow parishioner noticing her absence and warning relatives demands clarification. How could anyone there possibly know she skipped a one-way digital broadcast from her own living room? Reporters have floated one plausible working theory. Maybe Nancy watched alongside a friend over speakerphone and that specific contact couldn't reach her that morning. There might be a logical explanation that authorities simply haven't released to the public yet. But when we combine the changing timeline, the suspicious church alibi, and that sealed dispatch call, alongside that strange 7-minute delay before requesting emergency police backup, we find a massive web of inconsistencies regarding how the discovery of Nancy's abduction actually played out. Then Savannah Guthrie dropped an Instagram video that we analysts view as cryptic, heavily coded, and chilling. Standing with her siblings, she stated, "We received your message, and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will obey." As investigators and former FBI negotiators, we immediately recognize that specific phrasing hitting tactical notes, the exact type of scripted dialogue law enforcement helps families draft when communicating with a suspected kidnapper. Saying "we will obey" isn't a natural plea drafted by grieving relatives. That is textbook hostage negotiation protocol. Yet the most critical question shadowing this ransom scenario remains utterly unanswered. Are these ransom demands actually authentic? Let's look at the psychology here. My legal contacts confirm that abducting a high-profile media celebrity's mother defies all operational logic. You're inviting the exact opposite of what criminals actually want. Kidnappers demand total privacy and shadows. They avoid targeting a Today Show anchor's mother, knowing her abduction guarantees relentless national media attention and full FBI mobilization. Let's look at the facts together: presidential statements, and the heaviest public scrutiny any missing person investigation has faced recently. A critical deadline is rapidly approaching. Based on a leaked report that a Tucson news station quickly scrubbed, we know the suspected kidnappers demanded $6 million in Bitcoin by 5 p.m. That is tomorrow. An earlier Thursday deadline reportedly came with a $4 million ransom demand. Jumping from $4 to $6 million after a missed deadline perfectly mirrors standard ransom escalation tactics. But we have to consider opportunistic scammers tracking heavy media coverage and bumping up fake demands based on what they think a desperate family might actually pay. Right now, investigators are aggressively pulling security footage from every business between Nancy and Annie's houses. Investigators are probing underground tanks right behind the crime scene. Evidence technicians are shooting flash photography inside the darkened family house at 10 p.m. We are seeing private security teams retrieving Nancy Guthrie's mail using gloved hands. Sheriff deputies are rolling up to neighboring houses with flashing lights to execute property searches. Yet officially, the local sheriff insists they still have absolutely no suspects, no persons of interest, and 0 suspect vehicles identified. At the same time, they admit they hold evidence back using a calculated media strategy to control what the public actually knows. The bottom line: Nancy Guthrie remains missing. 7 agonizing days without her medication. 7 days missing her essential hearing aids. A full week severed from the vital routines keeping an 84-year-old woman alive and connected to her loving family. Now the United States President claims he is actively discussing a resolution. A definitive outcome. Something that could happen reasonably soon. Let's assess the timeline together. We are racing toward a Monday deadline that is either deadly real or manufactured by sick parasites exploiting a family's nightmare. If you hold any solid information, call the FBI at 1-800. Call FBI or submit tips online. The reward now exceeds $1.2 million. This intense investigation is far from over. Subscribe now, because in this active case, every single update changes exactly what we thought we knew. My analysis today relies strictly on open source data meant purely for informational tracking and public awareness. These aren't official agency conclusions. Everyone we mentioned remains legally presumed innocent until proven guilty in court. Always verify facts with independent sources for a complete perspective.